All right, session 9, getting to the good stuff here. We are actually going to do an initial appointment, assessment, consultation, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to kind of give you my script when I meet with a client, either one-on-one or as a couple. And you can use your own words. I've done a couple thousand of these or more. And it takes time. Generally, when a client comes in, obviously fill out the paperwork and before you meet with them, if you're a licensed professional, and uh, generally uh, get to know them a little bit and dive right into this. It can take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, up to an hour. Just depends how you want to do it. I find this to be very best use of their uh, money and time and the best use of my time. So I think this saves 4 to 5 therapeutic hours by just doing it this way. Get to the heart of the issue, and then I explain what's going on, and then I give them a recommendation. So if let's say Joe comes to your office, Joe and Mary, and I say, hey, nice to meet you. Thanks for completing your paperwork. Let's get started, and to get their name, their spouse's name, occupation, and their spouse's occupation, how long they've been married, and number of divorces, kids, spiritual status, religious upbringing, number of years married, and kids or grandkids. So, and as we go through this, I always preface as I'm looking for short answers or yes and no to the questions. I'll allow time at the end to add anything I might have missed. Okay. And generally goes really well. So this is a very structured way of not getting down rabbit trails of stories. We can do that later. Okay. And find this to be very helpful and effective. Now, some of my couples that are very toxic, it's not wise to do this together because these questions are very vulnerable, very intimate, very detailed. So if you get a feel with a couple doesn't want to do this together, that's great. That's probably wise. Some of my couples, generally speaking, I'd say over half the time, probably 70-75% of the time, I sit down with them and do this together. Okay. As we go through this, you will begin to understand why some couples may not be wise to do this together because the partner may not know all of these secrets yet. Okay. All right. So that's um, the beginning of this, just kind of demographic information. Okay. In the PDF version, this is just on here, the same thing, just made for my slides. Okay. It should follow the same order as the PDF. Okay. All right. So as we're going through this, I generally start with him and uh, ask, okay, what was your birth order? You like first to five. Okay, and I write that down on here, first of three, one of one, or only child. Then I get into asking questions about mom and dad. So growing up, did you experience or know of any addictions looking back with mom or dad? Drugs, sex, alcohol, food, money, gambling, etc. Okay. Abuse from mom or dad towards you. Okay. So did mom verbally, emotionally, physically, sexually abuse you? Okay. And I write that in there. Okay. Did dad? Okay. And this is again biological dad or mom or caregiver. Okay. Which sometimes may be a grandparent. Okay. And were you close growing up? Well, before that one, I also like to ask, did you hear I love you? I'm proud of you growing up. So a lot of these first two, you're not going to get much information, but generally, did mom and dad say I love you? Some yes, many will say no, I never heard that. Now that you bring that up, okay. Were you close, distant, neutral, or in conflict with your relationship with mom? How would you best describe that? Close, distant, neutral, conflict, or conflictual? Dad. Okay. Oh, dad, it's pretty distant. He worked a lot, never saw him much. If they're, I also like to ask, were mom and dad married, divorced while growing up, or mom and dad alive, deceased? Okay. How old were you when they died? Okay. So I always center around the client. How old were you when that happened? Okay. Um, I'd say a little less than half the time, stepmom, stepdad are involved. So then I also like to add that in here. And again, same thing. Did you then live with dad and stepmom? Do you live with mom, stepdad? Oh, well, mom was married 3, 4 times, and all my siblings are half siblings. So you're gonna have to write that in here too. Okay. Not a lot of space, but you can make it work. Addictions, you go through stepmom. Was mom struggled with any addictions? Oh yeah, she drank all the time. Okay, how about dad? No, but yeah, he liked his pornography. Found it in the bedroom once. Okay. Any abuse from stepmom, stepdad toward you? Physical, emotional, verbal, right? Did you hear I love you? I'm proud of you. Okay. Close, distant, neutral, and conflict with stepmom or stepdad. Okay. And this can also apply to foster parents too. Okay. All right. So that's number one. We're going to go through all of these. Okay. And on your sheet there's 20 different areas we're going to look at. So family of origin. Okay. So and you can start with the husband and go to the wife or the female partner. And then you have two of these, one for her, one for him. Okay. And I switch back and forth between the two pieces of paper. And I generally print it front and back so I could keep it clean and not get confused in too many papers. All right, so then I go back to him, or sometimes I'll even just go through several of these before I go to her. You got to figure out what's working for you. So then I ask these next questions. So I preface it with, so these next questions are about pornography and masturbation. Okay. So in junior high, at what age did you, well, first I start at what age did you first masturbate? And I write that on the top. Oh, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10, 15. I don't remember. You'll get a lot of different responses. So I always say know your lines, and I'll say, well, approximately what's your best guess? Okay. And they'll generally give you an age. Okay. So some will be very young. Well, I was abused by my stepdad, my babysitter, my uncle. Okay, what age was that? Well, best memory, around 5 years old. And that's when I started to self-stimulate. Okay, so you're gonna put this in here. So how often? What we're looking for is frequency. So how often did you masturbate? Maybe once a week. Oh, I didn't start till high school, or is in my 20s. Okay. Oh, so you're writing this down. So I go methodically, junior high, put not applicable, high school. Oh, about 15. I started. Okay. So maybe once a week, once a month, once a year, twice a week. Give them some options to choose from. Okay. And if there's college or military service, sometimes I skip that one. That's not all that important. 20s, how about in your 20s? Oh, uh, I started getting into relationships, so it was less often. 30s, oh, I got married, but then it picked up again. So you're going to hear a wide range of answers. And you'll know their age in the part one here. Whoops. You'll put their age in there as well. So they'll know how far to go with this piece here. So they're 45, so you're going to go up to age 45. And then you go back through the pornography. So when you view pornography, do you masturbate to pornography or to thoughts or to fantasy? Okay. And they'll answer, oh yeah, I started pornography when I was 15. And it was always to pornography or always to thoughts or fantasies. Okay. And so you're gonna write that in there. I always like to get here at the bottom, length of sobriety. So how many days, weeks, months, or years was the last time you masturbated? So always a last use, last time. Generally they're going to be the same. Oh yeah, last week, 7 days ago, I masturbated and viewed pornography. Okay. Sometimes they'll view pornography without masturbation. That's less likely. Most it might be masturbation without pornography. Okay, so I get through these answers. I go to her, or again, you can continue with him for a few more of these sections. So then I ask about self-esteem, some self-worth. How would you rate that? High, medium, or low in the last 6 months, 3 months, whatever you want to look at. Well, I think my self-esteem is pretty low. Okay. Anger. How would you rate your anger in the last 6 months? Oh, it's pretty high. Okay, so what do you do with your anger? Do you stuff, eat, explode, exercise, talk it out, numb it up with drugs, pot, marijuana, alcohol, gaming, sleep, smoking, sex, social media, food? How do you medicate? And they'll answer those, and you circle or explain in these sections. Okay, all right. So let's talk about sexual fantasies a little bit. And this is where some couples, you may want to get into this, and they're pretty toxic. You may hold off and ask these individually. Let's say it's not toxic and we're just going to plow through this. So do you have any sexual fantasies, types, heterosexual, LGBTQ, same-sex attraction, children, minors, prepubescent, teens, postpubescent, any gender preferences, nationality, animals, or fuzzies, it's called, hinty, video games? Okay, so you can be as specific as you want. Okay, and the more you know, the more you can help them. All right, so sexual positions. Do you prefer being submissive, dominant, passive? And this can oftentimes explain the types of trauma or abuse they've experienced, especially as teens or as children when they were growing up. I never really thought about it. I have no preference. Okay, that's fine too. Okay, so sexual fantasy or behaviors. Do you prefer hand, oral, vaginal, anal? Stands for HOVA. We call it hand, oral, vaginal, anal, or violent types of sex. Well, I prefer, hand, oral, and vaginal, and types of pornography. So we're getting into the types of pornography they like to view. Okay. Have your fantasy changed in the last 2 months or 2 years, 30 days? Okay. That's important to know if their addiction's getting more aggressive. They're having to go darker and deeper to get that same enkephalin, endorphin, dopamine stuff. All right, so mood. How would you describe your mood over the last 3 or 6 months? Are you pretty even keeled, down, depressed, or up and down? Are you anxious? And then they'll answer that. I think I'm more up. I am more down, or down and pretty depressed. I think I'm pretty even. And sometimes they'll look over at their spouse. What do you think? Yeah, I disagree. I think you're pretty depressed. Oh, okay. I thought I was pretty even. Okay. And again, now we're getting into counseling history. So how many counselors have you worked with? Okay. Since, before the marriage or relationship, or since? Have you done any, get names, most current, okay? And the goal of this is, am I their fifth therapist, their 25th therapist? Because I've been that. And I'm looking, are they jumping around, and how am I do not want to become another therapeutic casualty or another therapist in the notch of their belt. Okay. So is this someone that just bounces around, not really wanting to get better? And then recovery. Have you done any recovery work for drug, sex, alcohol? Okay. What programs? Did you complete that program? Was it helpful? Names of programs, grief and loss, okay, due to death, all types of recovery programs, support groups out there. Okay, some psychiatric medication, medical history. So this I like to ask, are you any psychiatric history, medical problems, head injuries, diabetes, thyroid issues? Okay. Oh, were you ever hospitalized for depression or anxiety? Any suicide attempts? Okay. Are you on any medications? Okay. So I get all that, write that all down. Okay. Some are very clean, no history whatsoever. Others may take a little bit of time. Okay. Again, medical history, head injuries, diabetes, thyroid issues, complications with pregnancies, that sort of thing. Okay. So at that point, up to about this section here, I might just stick with him, and then I'll go back and go through all of this again with her. Okay. And again, I remind them, looking for short answers or yes and no to these questions. Okay. So we got through that. And we're going to review this again in the next video as well. So it's a lot. So now for the first time, so I got them both caught up, been through all this, and don't be afraid if you're working with female clients to ask the same questions, especially about porn and masturbation, this section here. It's the exact same. You don't need to be bashful about it. Need to get comfortable with these words. Okay. And if you're not, practice saying these words. Your clients will be as comfortable as you are, or as uncomfortable as you are. All right, so the anorexic assessment. Now this part, we're going to go back and forth. So generally how I do this is I start with the one that I think is anorexic, okay, or the addict first. And I preface it, let's say, they've been married 20 years or 30 years. You asked this earlier in section 1. So of the 20 years of marriage, would you say more often than not that your partner, so more than half the time, has withheld love from you? So Joe, do you think more than half the time Mary has withheld love from you in this marriage? And a lot of people want to think in the last 30 days, 1 year, but more than half the time. So more than 10 of the 20 years, more than 15 of the 30. Okay. So we're going to write his response or put a check there, or a Y or whatever. And then I'm going to ask the reverse. Okay, Mary, would you say Joe has withheld love from you more often than not in this marriage? Okay. And then I go back to him. Joe, would you say Mary has withheld praise or appreciation from you more often than not in the relationship? And Mary, would you say that's true of Joe? Okay, Joe, would you say Mary's controlling with her silence or anger in the relationship more often than not? Mary, would you say Joe is controlling with his silence and anger? Okay. And sometimes they'll go off a little tangent, or I don't know, or I generally mark it with an X as if it's a clear yes, or just a slash half an X if it's kind of on the fence. Okay. So you're going to go through all of these questions. Okay. Joe, do you feel Mary withholds sex from you more often than not? Mary, do you think that's true, Joe, towards you? Joe, do you think Mary is unwilling or unable to talk about her feelings with you? Oh, no, definitely not. Mary, do you think Joe's unwilling or unable to talk about his feelings with you? Oh, yeah, definitely. and you're going back and forth. Okay. Joe, do you think Mary stays too busy, has no time for you in a relationship? Mary, do you think that's true of Joe? Okay, so now if you're doing this with just one person, you're going to ask it as though, what would Mary say about you? Okay, or Mary, what would Joe say about you? Okay, I don't want their answer, I want their partner's answer. And generally, it's pretty accurate, surprisingly. Okay, so if you're doing it separate, then what I do, if I have them separate, I then bring them together at the end of the 2 sessions. And generally what you'll find, it's pretty accurate. Okay, now if it's off, let's say you're doing this individually, you're going to see that, well, Joe really has some pretty poor insight because Mary doesn't experience him that way, or vice versa. Mary has some pretty poor insight. He sees her much more anorexic than she sees herself. Okay. And so that's not a bad thing. It's just showing you denial, maybe some personality type stuff, guardedness, possibly some narcissistic attributes. Okay. So it's very beneficial to do it either way. Okay. So if the couple's able to do this together, great. If not, not a big deal. You roll with it and you get answers, then you go back and look at both of them and compare. So you tally it up. Let's say Joe has 9 and Mary has 5. Okay, yeses. Okay, so you're going to write that at the bottom, tally up. Okay, and so now we know Joe's probably the anorexic. You brought this into the relationship. She might be more reactionary. Okay, sometimes it's even, both at 9. Sometimes she's high at 10, he's low at 3 or 4. So this is not gender specific. Okay, avoidant, aversion could be either gender. All right. Now the depressive assessment. Now I'll continue on. And okay, Joe. More often than not, in the last 6 months, have you had a 2-week period, and in that 2 weeks, you were depressed more days than not? No, I don't think so. Mary, how about you? In the last 6 months, 3 months, have you had a 2-week period in which you were depressed more days than not? Yeah, probably. Okay, so you're going to go through this. Have you lost interest in hobbies or activities you once enjoyed? And they're each going to answer for themselves. Significant weight gain or loss, more than 10 pounds. Sleeping too much or too little. Easily agitated at home or in public with the people around you. Okay, fatigue, loss of energy more days than not. Feelings of worthlessness, excessive guilt, or shame. Okay, diminished ability to think or concentrate, stay focused. And this last one, I kind of tweak it to not so much recurrent thoughts of death, but just, I'd rather be dead, don't want to get up in the morning, not really suicidal, but just don't have the energy or the hope to move forward. Or I'd rather be dead and up in heaven with God or whatever. Okay. And if more than 5 of these, then depression's most likely present. Okay. I'm not saying this to them. I'm just taking notes. Okay. All right. So the next part of this is frequency of sex with your partner. And these are some additional questions. So how many times per week do you as a couple have sex? So again, if you're doing this as a couple or individual, you can always go back and compare answers if you're doing it individually. Well, twice a week, twice a month, once a year. When was the last time? You usually initiate sex. It's supposed to be initiate there. Are you happy with how often is your partner happy? Do you go into fantasy while having sex with your partner? If so, is it 10, 20, 50, 80% of the time? Is pornography part of your sexual life together? No, not anymore, but we used to. Okay, is alcohol part of your sex life? You have to get drunk or have a drink before we have sex. Okay. What do you want to change about your sex life with your partner? I'd like him or her to initiate. I'd like to explore that more, be more fun, more spontaneous. Okay. It's difficult with kids. It's difficult now the kids are gone. There's always a reason not to have sex generally when it comes to anorexia. Okay. It's too hot. It's too cold. I got a headache. All right. So just observing, just taking down information. Okay, so now we're back to the individual stuff. So then I'll start with him again. Okay, so when was the first time you had a sexual experience, wanted or unwanted? Okay, so what age was your first sexual experience with another person, willingly or unwillingly, wanted or unwanted? Okay. And 5 or 10 or 15, okay, 20. You'll get a variety of answers. And sometimes questions about, well, what do you mean by sexual experience? And I say, well, we don't define it. Is it hand, oral, vaginal, anal, petting, intercourse, touching, kissing, fondling, however you define it? Okay. Most will define it with sexual intercourse or penetration, okay, of some sort. Um, so you're going to fill this in. Okay, starting at what age and what partner? How old was your partner? Okay, and the next slide will show you how I fill this in. Just a sample, just an example. All right, so let's say this person, we'll call him Joe again. I was about 7 or 8. Okay, or it could be Mary, whatever. It could be around 7 or 8. It was a male neighbor who was 30. And oral 3 times. I never told anyone. Okay. And sometimes, very often, you'll be the first one they have ever told. Their partner may not even know. Okay. 15. Well, okay. And I get very empathetic, show compassion, listen. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability. Start using words like that. Okay. This takes a lot of courage. You're doing amazing. Okay. When was your next sexual experience? Oh, I was about 15. He was 15. It was just a one night stand, a vaginal. Okay. So this would be a woman, but this is just as likely it could be a guy. Just different positions. And alcohol was involved. Okay. Next, okay, 15, he was 16, dating 1 year vaginal intercourse. Okay. 16, 18, he was 17, dating 2 years. Okay. 19 to 21, 18, a male dating 2 years. Okay. 21 to 51, married to Joe, 30 years, married, 3 kids, one affair at age 25, 6 months long. Okay. So begin to see how this works. So I just ask question after question, be inquisitive. Any other sexual behaviors not mentioned? No. Behaviors with the same gender? Yes, 1 time, 17. So if this was Mary, a female partner, okay, in that case. Yes, comorbid issues. So other, yes, pot is the drug type. Many will report alcohol. So I get very specific, what type, how often. It's beer, whiskey, martinis, weekends, or a glass of wine every night. Okay. Any HIVs or STDs, and any abortions, yes, at age 25, 1. Okay. So do that with him and her and go through this. So this is an example of female sexual history. Okay, pretty typical what you'll see. And here, okay. So then we kind of get to the end. I've gone through her sexual history, and then I give the client opportunity to share anything you might have missed. Is there anything you want to add or clarify? Okay, expand on any of the details. And I always like to ask, is there anything you do not want me to know today? Okay. And most are pretty honest. Some will maybe still lie to you, but that doesn't matter. But what it does is just let them know, I can only help you as much as you're willing to be honest with me. Okay. Someone will say, yeah, but I don't want to say anymore with my partner in here, whatever. Okay. So that time you can ask the one to leave and then to come back and give that person the opportunity. Well, do you want to share this with your partner? Can I be part of that? Can I help you do that? Okay. Whatever that may be. Okay. Doesn't matter how big or small you think the secret is. To you, it's generally very extreme, very shaming, extremely shaming to them. Okay. I also like to ask, how would you rate or score the following as, and this is I do generally on a notepad, piece of paper. The following could be better. So there's these 8 other areas I like to look at. How would you rate? And I would do this together, or if they're separate, and then I would have them answer it separate, and then again compare answers on my own time. Dating each other, and I use just kind of an up and down arrow on this. Okay. Oh, do you date regularly? Once a week, go out and do something fun without the kids. No, that could be better. So I put a down arrow. Okay. Socially, or hanging out with friends or other couples in your community, having them at your house, or you going to their house once a month. Nah, we never do that. Sex life with each other. You already got the score on frequency. So this one you probably already answer. It could be better. So a down arrow. Spirituality, pursuing a faith or religious practice together. Yeah, we go to church together or religious practice, but we never pray together. So maybe an even arrow. So up, down, or sometimes just parallel arrow. And sharing of feelings with each other. She does that well. I don't do it at all. So it can be an up and down arrow. Okay? Money, and meaning how it's saved, spent, or invested. Do we agree, or does it cause a lot of issues of contention? Yeah, it's pretty contentious there. No, we never argue about money. So an up arrow. And for people that never argue, and a down arrow for those that do. Parenting our kids as a unit. Okay. Again, strong or weak could be better. In-laws, getting along with each other's parents, or the parents getting along with them. Okay. Again, might have an up arrow for him, a down arrow for her. She doesn't get along with my mother, or I don't get along with her father. Okay. You get the idea. It's a lot of information we're gathering very, very quickly. And finally, the big one is trust. That's the main reason couples will come to your office, is trust has been broken. Okay. We define trust earlier in level 1. Trust is positive, consistent behavior over time. Okay, so how would you score your trust on a scale of 1 to 10 toward your partner? 10 being I trust them 100%. So generally, I ask the addict first. Okay, and then I ask the partner. So, how would you score your partner in the area of trust? Oh, I trust her 9 out of 10. Okay, and marry your trust towards Joe. Okay. Well, what area? You might get questions, but usually they're there in your office due to fidelity, care, pornography, or lying, secrets. So that's generally the area they're going to go, oh, about a 2, a 1, a 0. Okay. Sometimes I'll break it down. Oh, I trust him with finances, totally. The kids, totally. Fidelity, no, hell no. And so you can give separate answers. But generally, I just keep it pretty simple. And then I look at the Joe and say, okay, what are you willing to do to restore that trust? And I'll write down the answer. I'll do anything. I'm here. I want this to work. And I'll quote and write those down on my pad of paper. Okay. Because that will become handy later when you introduce the polygraph test and you start to get some backpedaling. Well, you just said you're willing to do anything, whatever it takes. Okay. And that'll be another topic in level 3 training, and how we help couples process and dive and take the polygraph. Okay. So a lot of information here. You might want to watch this again, but in the next session, we're going to review now all of these again. So this is the assessment we use. I've been using it for 15 years almost. So very effective, very quick. And then again, generally 30 minutes. If I'm doing a couple, individual 20 minutes. Sometimes I've noticed too, people that are more generally past 60, it takes a little longer, just their cognitive abilities a little bit slower, or people are in a lot of pain and very anxious and just need to talk a lot. So we try to rein that in, try to control this assessment session and that they feel, not rushed, but validated, but also you're getting the information you need to help them efficiently and effectively. All right. So good job on that. It's been fun. It's good stuff. We'll continue and review this in the next session.